friends, and welcome back to AmandaMuse. So today, not the perfect lighting, that's for sure. We're sitting on my deck. It is later in the evening, and I might be sipping on a rum and coke because it's summer. But I did want to talk about something that I was addressing on Instagram recently. There was the tragic shooting in Texas where there was some lives lost, and what struck me was the conversation around the word no and the power of women being able to tell men no. And if you're kind of confused, the long story short, and now there may be more news about this, which I should have looked into before filming this, but at the time it was determined that the boy who had started shooting and done the shooting at the school, the reason he did it or was prompted was because a girl that he was romantically interested in had said no and declined his advances, and apparently he'd been pushing this pretty hard, and then ultimately she said no, embarrassed him in front of other students in class, and he went to school a couple days later and she was the first victim. Now, there may be more to this story that's come out since last week. I'm not fully informed, but whether or not I have my facts in order about that particular story, I think it's safe to say that this is a very common thing to happen to women. This may happen to men as well, but I think, like, if you look at it as a big picture, I myself have personal stories where I have told boys no and it didn't go well for me. They seem to not hear me, and it's just dawned on me that this is not how I'm going to raise my kids. My daughter is going to know that she has a voice and she has power, and my son is going to learn to listen but also know that he has a voice and he has power, and vice versa, regardless of their typical gender roles. So in my Insta story, when I was kind of ranting and pissed off, I should say, because the fact that this girl who knew her strength and knew what she wanted and didn't want was killed because of it kind of pisses me off, breaks my heart, all of the above. And so something that came up in my rant was this idea of toxic masculinity, and I threw that word around, and then I realized, do I actually know what that means? And so I looked it up, and here is a definition of toxic masculinity. It says, it's a social science term that describes narrow, repressive type of ideas about the male gender role, that defines masculinity as exaggerated masculine traits like being violent, unemotional, sexually aggressive, and so forth. It also suggests that men who act too emotional or maybe aren't violent enough or don't do all of the things that real men do can get their man card taken away. So many people confuse the difference between masculinity and toxic masculinity. However, one can be masculine without having toxic masculinity. In other words, there's a way to be a man without being a complete douche. Some beliefs of toxic masculinity is that interactions between men and women always has to be competitive and not cooperative. It's a bad thing. That men can never truly understand women, and that men and women can never just be friends. Obviously not true. That real men need to be strong, and that showing emotion is a sign of weakness unless it's anger, and that is considered okay. And that the idea that men can never be victims of abuse and talking about it is shameful, obviously inaccurate, and that real men always want sex and are ready for it at any time, and the idea that violence is the answer to everything and that real men solve their problems through violence. The idea that men could never be single parents, and that men shouldn't be interactive in their children's learning and development, and that men should always be the dominant one in the relationship or else he's a cuck. The idea that any interest in a range of things that are considered strictly feminine would be an emasculation of a guy. So in other words, a guy, a real man doesn't stay at home and take care of his kids while his wife works. Really? I feel like that's a really good kind of starting point for this idea. But I guess before I even jump into it, I would love to know in the comment section, what are your thoughts on all of this? Have you experienced this in your life where, and I guarantee that like 90% of you have, but where you have told a person no in a romantic situation with advances or whatever this person's trying to do, and that person just completely ignores you, like as if no is a challenge. I lost my train of thought because I was interrupted, my kids were playing in the yard, etc. It's this nice hot summer-ish evening. But I basically have always wanted to create dialogue around women, around uplifting and supporting women. But in that process, there's obviously men who support women, who uplift women, and women uplift and support men, you know, all of the things. As mothers, we have the opportunity to have sons. And so I think it's just so important in, like, when we think about, did I just eat a bug? I think I might have. But I just think it's so important to think about how we raise our children and the power that we give them. And I guess what really resonated with me is that there was this tweet that was shared, and the story is that there was a boy, like a tween, a teenager kind of thing, and he was telling his aunt or whatever that he had liked a girl at school. He'd asked her out and she said no, and the aunt goes, "So you know what comes next, right?" And his response was, "Well, yeah, I just keep trying harder and maybe she'll say yes," kind of thing. And the woman looked at him, his aunt, and was like, "No, she said no, that's it, done. Time to move on, you got your answer." The word no is not an invitation for a challenge. It does not mean you need to try harder. There has been so much in movies, in messaging, that if a woman says no, she's doing it in some coy way and actually means yes, work harder. No, no means no. That's it. And I feel kind of silly even making this video because I'm like, what am I even going to say? But actually that's the message, is that when my daughter says no, whether it is a tickle fight, actually I have a story about this. So Esme, and I have told this story before, my dad watching will be chuckling a little bit, but my dad is very hands-on with the kids, very playful, very roughhousing, and he had been roughhousing with Esme, and I guess had like given her a little tap on the bum. And Esme and I, and Dean and the kids and everyone, we have lots of discussions about our bodies and what is ours. It's our body, it's our power. We have the ability to say, no, I don't like that, that kind of thing. So she comes out to me, like just post-play with Grandpa, who by the way are in the living room and I'm in the kitchen making dinner, and she says, "Mom, Grandpa touched my bum and I really didn't like it." And I thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to demonstrate how important her words are and how important, and to me and to everybody, regardless of her age, how important it is. And she's like probably 5 at the time, maybe 4.5 even. And so I said, "Dad," I kind of pulled my dad aside. I said, "I'm going to tell Grandpa we're going to have a little chat. Is that okay?" "Totally." So I pulled my dad aside. I go, "Dad, just roll with this. I got you, okay?" He's like, "All right." So he sits down and I'm like, "Okay." So Esme sat on my lap and I said, "Dad, I know you were playing with Esme and she was having a fun time, but you touched her bum and she really doesn't like that. And she said no, and so I need you to respect that." And he was like, "I'm on board." He apologized to Esme and it just didn't happen again. Now this may seem silly and this may seem like maybe I went overboard, but I don't think I did. I think it's important for children to know it, no matter what age. That is their private self. Their words have meaning, have impact, and they have power regardless of their age. When my son, who is potty training at the moment, he's pretty much day potty trained, working on the nighttime, when he goes to the bathroom, he says, "Privacy, Mom," and he closes the door. I respect that. I'm not going to barge in. Like, this is how you teach self-awareness. This is how you teach children that they have, I've said it a million times now, but there's power in what they say, you know? And so I think it's sometimes those little things, and then as they get older, those little things become bigger things, and that's kind of what's created this like solid foundation of what's okay and what's not okay. In terms of toxic masculinity, I think that's like a whole separate video we could talk about, but to me, it's allowing my son to have feelings, any feeling. It's knowing that the term "boys will be boys" is not really an okay term. Boys may have tendencies towards certain behaviors and maybe even need a more physical outlet than a lot of young girls do. Like, what I mean by that is, if you have a son, you probably understand. I appreciate that not every kid is the same, so hear me out. But like, if Dean's been away for a couple days, I'll often invite my dad over just to like roughhouse with Jack, because Jack just needs to like get that energy out of his system, where Esme doesn't need to roughhouse. She just needs attention and a different type of energy release, but it's not the same roughhousing type. So it's just very interesting. And like, I wonder, you know, was there a point where we stopped using the word no in parenting that has created a situation where now children can't even hear the word no and they don't know how to respond to the word no? You know, when did that happen? And how do we kind of backtrack a little bit and bring it back? because I think that there's like this widespread problem where everybody gets a ribbon for showing up. No, there are winners and there are losers. You have to work hard, you know? Maybe not everyone's gonna like you. Like, I feel like it's creating this false sense of entitlement. I digress, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, you don't get everything you want. When someone says no, yeah, it sucks and resentment hurts, but c'est la vie, mon ami, and it's time to like buck up and move on. And we need to start creating an environment where we're equipping people with coping skills and coping mechanisms. And so where I want to leave it is this is kind of just like touching on this subject matter, but let me know in the comments, perhaps people you like, you know, researchers or writers who have shared information in a way that's digestible, that is easy to use for people parenting right now and trying to create a different type of adult. You know, I don't think we're all going to get it right. Parenting is it's a bit of a shit show at times, but I know there's a lot of us who are consciously trying to do good things. And so my technique right now is just a lot of hands-on listening, trying to teach them that, yeah, it might hurt when things don't go your way, but here's how we can cope. Here's how we can like try again the next time, understanding the power of no, allowing to feel yourself, you know, feel the feelings your body and your mind and your heart want to feel, all of those things. My battery's about to die, so I'm gonna wrap it up, but I would love to know your comments, all of them, any of them, leave them below. I feel like I touched on a lot of stuff because I think there's a lot I could say about this. Podcast ideas, what do you think? I am starting to record those, so I might just include this in one of them. Alright guys, if you're new, subscribe. I put out all types of videos. This one is a chatty one, but if you like, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video.